Yes. Pleased, gave him a pretty good introduction for time allowed, but want to once again welcome and thank good friend and constituent David Sokol, CEO of MidAmerican Energy, who has great insight into the issues facing electrical generation. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Congressman said, I'm Dave Sokol, Chairman of MidAmerican Energy Holdings Company, part of Berkshire Hathaway, and we have $41 billion in energy assets in 20 states and around the world, serving 7 million end-use customers. Our two domestic utilities serve retail electric and natural gas customers in 10 states, and our generation capacity consists of about 22% renewables, 48% coal, 24% natural gas, and the remainder nuclear. I want to be absolutely clear at the outset. Cap and trade is two concepts. As we have consistently stated, the electricity sector can meet the interim and ultimate caps of reducing greenhouse gas emissions to 80% below 2005 levels by 2050. But the bill's trading mechanism will impose a huge and unacceptable double cost on our customers. First, to pay for emissions allowances, which will not reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 1 ounce, and then for the construction of new low and zero carbon power plants and other actions that will actually do the job of reducing these emissions. This bill will cost hundreds of billions of dollars, and we think it is wrong to saddle customers with these unnecessary and duplicative costs that provide them with absolutely no benefit. Some congressmen claim that the cost of compliance with this bill will be zero or modest at worst. They're wrong, either because they've not read the bill or they've chosen to intentionally mislead the public on this topic. The cost impact of the allowance trading mechanism has been grossly understated for utilities with coal-fired generation. Under the allowance allocation formula, we calculate, strictly pursuant to the bill, that our 2012 allowance shortfall will be nearly 50%, not 10%. This represents 32.4 million allowances, which at $25 per allowance will cost our customers, in the first year alone, $810 million. That would essentially create a tax of between 12 and 28% in the states that we serve. That's just for the first year, and at a very conservative estimate of $25 per allowance, and as you know, some predict market prices to be 2 to 4 times higher. As the cap tightens and auctions increasingly replace free allocations, annual compliance costs will run into the tens of billions of dollars. But as they say, the devil's in the details, so let's take a closer look at the bill. In the first year, the bill creates 4.6 billion allowances, takes off 1% for strategic reserves, and then gives the electricity sector a percentage that amounts to 2 billion allowances. Now, the sector's total greenhouse gas emissions in 2005 were 2.4 billion tons. So the 2 billion allowance constitute a 16.7% shortfall. The bill then gives an estimated 300 million allowances to merchant coal generators and other long-term power purchase agreements, which will therefore not be utilized for the benefit of customers. And that leaves local distribution companies with about 1.7 billion allowances, a 30% cut below the sector's 2.4 billion tons of emissions, not a 10% cut. But there are other cuts as well. For example, our two utilities have added about 2,000 megawatts of wind generation since 2004. We're the largest utility owner of wind generation in the United States. How does that bill treat our customers for their early action and willingness to move on climate change by adding wind and reducing carbon emissions? The bill penalizes them. And under your bill, utilities, the ones that actually need the allowances for compliance, will be forced to compete with Wall Street investment banks, hedge funds, and speculators. Those folks don't generate electricity, they don't cut emissions, but they do love volatility. The bill's supporters also point to the SO2 trading program as a successful template for this bill. Let's be clear, the only similarity between the SO2 program and the Waxman bill is that they're both called cap and trade. The differences are huge. First, the SO2 program applied only to the utility sector, not economy-wide. Secondly, the volume of trading in the carbon market will be at least 300 times greater than the SO2 market. Third, the SO2 program started, when it started, plant owners had choices. They could implement off-the-shelf available technology, switch to lower sulfur fuels, or buy allowances. Today, there is no commercially available technology to capture and sequester carbon from coal and natural gas plants, and as you know, they produce 70% of our nation's electricity. And fourth, 97% of the SO2 allowances went to the utilities and are freely distributed over the life of that program. Again, not the case here. And then lastly, the proceeds from the SO2 auction were redistributed to the utilities to offset their cost of compliance. Again, not so here with CO2. As we've said, the billions of dollars we pay for these allowances in this new market will not reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 1 ounce. Only actions to actually meet emissions caps will do that. If your goal is to decarbonize the electric power sector, then you should keep the long-term caps, but give states the option to bypass this trading mechanism by using their existing state and federal regulatory framework to determine the most efficient way to get there. This tackles the real problem, or at least the problem we thought, which was reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but it eliminates the costly and useless allowance trading. Is this still going to be expensive? Yes, but let's not make the consumer pay twice to reach these goals. Thank you, and I'd be happy to take any questions.